Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So today we're going to be talking about iRobot. And today I'm going to be talking about why I'm going to be selling my iRobot stock really quick here. Most likely we're going to get into those reasons. Of course, today they just released their Q3 2020 results. Conference call is going to be tomorrow. And the stock originally just skyrocketed after hours. Taking a look at the stock right now. Intraday, it was almost $100 per share right after the earnings came out. It skyrocketed almost 12% at one point, and now we're looking at it being down approximately 5%. So today we're going to get into those earnings, my thoughts on those earnings. I'm going to give you a little bit of news that happened on the company. Then I'm going to get into telling you what I'm going to be doing with my shares and what I think probably is going to happen going forward. So first things first, before we get into any of the earnings, I originally made a video about iRobot about a year ago. I think it was something like that. I'll put a link down in the description. I'll also put a link right here as well right now. And at that time, it was a really good bargain. And of course, I think I'm up about 70% right now, and that's an awesome return. I said within the next 5 years, I believe it was, it could double, and we're getting close to that right now. So luckily, that was a good call on my part. Earnings have come out, different things have happened, of course. But as of recently, if you've been watching my videos, I told you that this year they're going to be releasing, they kept talking about they're going to be releasing another Roomba vacuuming robot. So they actually did that. So let's take a look at that here. They actually, released a Roomba i3. Now, at first, I was pretty disappointed. I was kind of expecting some high premium one, but this is more of a budget minded one here. Of course, we're looking in Canada here. And this one has a lot of the advanced technology that the other ones do, namely being the self-emptying bin. You can get it with or without that. Personally, that's not something I would want, because then you got to buy the bags and it's an added cost. Of course, it's very convenient, but it has all the advanced features of the new app that they just release, which is pretty phenomenal in itself and adds a lot of features that we wanted, like no-go lines and stuff. However, this one itself does not actually support no-go lines, which for me, somebody that uses Roomba all the time, is extremely important. Of course, I have a 7000 series one right now, and it doesn't have that anyway, but if I were to upgrade, I would get that. Also, another downside of this one, it doesn't have the camera. So it says that it's using, this guided by serious smarts, smart navigation. That's basically, it says the i3 navigates and maps your homes in neat rows using state-of-the-art floor tracking sensors to vacuum hardwood and carpet. Pardon me today. But as far as I understand, I think most robots had that technology, Roombas that is. And, I think they just basically changed it to go in a straight line. I'm also not a big fan that it doesn't have that D design with the wide brush on the front. Personally, I don't think it captures quite as much. But, in terms of positives here, we've got a smarter robot. It does cleaning with your voice, a better app, straight lines. They're saying it has about 10 times more suction power. Of course, they're comparing this to their 600 series, but still, it's a lot of power. They've jam-packed a lot of power. So it's a really good value. And probably in these times, it's a pretty good idea to make something a little bit cheaper that will sell well, and they've been selling phenomenally well. So all in all, I think that's some pretty good news for the company. I just wanted to cover it here quickly because it's something, if you're an investor or you're just interested in iRobot, that's, probably pretty important to you. In terms of the earnings were really good, but I'm wondering why it's actually down after hours. I'm going to get to that. But going over the top line numbers here, revenue was $413.1 million, and it was estimated that they'd make $314 million. So that's a huge beat, and I think that's why we saw the stock skyrocket so much. This is up 43% sequentially. Sequentially means last quarter. So if you're, doing quarter over quarter, it's going to be different, but this is from last quarter. So that's some phenomenal growth. Of course, there's some reasons why that's a little bit more. I'm going to get into that, and maybe that's why the stock's tanking a bit. So stick around, guys. EPS, earnings per share, was $3.27, and estimated was 97 cents. So huge beat there again. And everybody, I think, with iRobot loves that they have no debt, and cash has grown now to $357.3 million. And of course, this is last quarter sequentially, it was 242.3 million. So they're building that cash pile. Good, good to know. We'll look into the financials and maybe see what was going on there as well. But before we do that, just a couple other little things that I'll talk about to maybe think about while we're going through the financials is the full year guidance is actually higher than they originally said. So it's about 1.365 to 1.375 billion. So their range was in the middle there a little bit. So definitely they're beating on that, and guidance is very important. But the two things I think maybe the reason for the stock kind of coming down is that $35 million, which is great, and I talked about this in my last video, that these tariff refunds are coming, right? Because they were granted exemption. $35 million this quarter was for tariff exemptions, and $52 million for a Teladoc stock. Now that's a little bit more complicated. I actually, if you know about this deal with Teladoc stock, comment down below and let me know about it, because I don't know that much about it. And that's one thing that I'm going to claim ignorance to. I don't know a hell of a lot about that. But if you take those two out, this isn't as impressive. It's still showing growth, but not quite as impressive. And maybe that's why the stock is coming down a little bit. And maybe that's why people are taking profits as well. One other thing I forgot to mention, I just saw it here. In this revenue, though, something very bullish is 86. They had an 86% growth. This is due to 86% growth in their premium category. So that's kind of almost why I thought maybe they should have made another premium robot. But that shows you people are spending money, and the other 36.7% was in the regular category. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Also, their growth, I forgot to write it down here, but their growth online was phenomenal. And that was one of the reasons that this went up so much. I think maybe people during these times shopping online. Also, Amazon, I think this is like their 10th year of being, one of the top sellers on Amazon Prime Day, and that's been phenomenal. I think that's kind of why the stock was running up. They seemed almost a little bit leaky with information on this one, that the stock was running up so much before earnings. Anyway, let's take a look at their financials right now. Before we get into their financials, I just wanted to show you this spreadsheet that I have here to give you a little bit of idea. I didn't want to write on my board because it's really going to clutter it and make it confusing, but if you want to pause the screen here or watch this again, this is showing from Q3 2019 all the way until this quarter, so we can see what's happened. Things are kind of, moving around a little bit, but on Q3 of 2019, we had 289.3 million, went up to over 400. Then we saw that big drop, of course, on Q1 to be expected, rose again to 379, and then, of course, this quarter at 413. So that's kind of the growth that we've seen, so it's nice to see it, not just sequentially or year over year, but sequentially, over a year's time. Same sort of story, of course, with EPS. You can see that as well there. And you can see what's happened with their cash is kind of being all over the place as well. But Q3 2019, a year ago, it was only 239.3 million. Rose a bit to 256, 263, dropped down a little bit, and now we're on, the upward trend here again. So again, guys, just something to look at. I think it's very important. It's hard to find that information and compile it. So there it is. Print it out, share it, whatever you guys want. So in terms of the income statement, of course, this is showing year over year. Again, revenue was $413.1 million. And year over year, it was 289.399. So basically 289.4 million a year ago. Gross profit was much better. We of course saw, the cost of the product revenue go up, but I expected to see that. Research and development increased to 38 million from 33 million. I've talked about that before with iRobot, and just like Apple and other companies, I like to see that increase as long as we're seeing the benefits of it. So that's one thing I will say about them, that in terms of some of the technology, I feel like iRobot is a little bit slow to adapt. Because a lot of the other competitors are using AI to like go around socks or dog poo or whatever, right? So they kind of seem to be slow, but they have that moat that is their brand recognition and gives them that bit of a competitive advantage. But, of course, we've seen them, in my opinion, innovate quicker than they have in the past, and I've seen that rise in line with that as well. Their net income was 93.2 million. Of course, that blows it out of the door, out of the water a year ago at 35.5 million. And of course, there's their diluted and their basic EPS that we already spoke about. Here's a shot of their balance sheet. I'm not going to go into too much here. Of course, you can see their cash balance that we talked about here. And keep in mind, guys, short-term investments, cash and cash equivalents, and long-term investments all add up to cash that they report. Here's a look at their statement of cash flows. You can look through it if you want. Some notable things, nothing too interesting. Of course, their stock-based compensation has increased slightly, but you know, that's kind of be expected, but it's something I like to watch with the executives in terms of corporate governance and such. You can see that they're still buying back stock. They purchased about $25 million in the last 9 months this is for. So of course, that's something I always like to see. Of course, they don't pay a dividend, so if they have extra cash, I hope that they're either investing it or doing that with it. And here you can see that the net increase in cash was $57.8 million. So we can see net there how the cash has risen. In terms of their revenue by geography, this is interesting. We've seen both domestic and international skyrocket. I mean, domestic more so, it was $117 million a year ago, and well over 206 million. Internationally was 171 versus 206. So amazing growth in both. Really like to see that. So in terms of their units shipped, in terms of vacuum or mopping, we saw a pretty, massive increase in the vacuums, but they've been focusing on that a lot from 975 to 1354. Mopping increased as well, though, to see a pretty substantial growth year over year in total. And another thing I'd like to focus on here was the average gross selling price for robots. Just like a company like Apple, you want to see this increase. It's like it usually increases your gross margin. 305 versus 312, so that's dollars increase. So that's pretty substantial when you look at the numbers that they're doing. And as they create more advanced technology, hopefully they increase their prices and increase their margins. In terms of the Section 301 tariff costs here, we can see that this quarter there was nothing. And of course, I already mentioned that as well. So overall, I mean, I think this was an absolutely phenomenal quarter. Perhaps this is why we're seeing it go down after hours, but I expect to see it go up tomorrow. But it's been on quite a run. Maybe that's why, like I said, but overall, fantastic quarter. So what am I gonna do? Of course, I'm still bullish on the company. But if you go back and you watch that first video, I had reasons to invest. And this is a good example of liking a company, liking a product versus liking their valuation. I usually talk about this with Tesla. It's a hard thing to do, but you gotta separate the two of them, right? The biggest reason that I think I'll be selling, and I think I'm gonna be selling around 105 to 110. Hopefully I'm not getting greedy. But when you're up 60, 70%, take those profits. You do that over and over and over and over again, you're going to become extremely wealthy. Also, this is a relatively short period of time for that kind of return, and there's going to be a lot of geopolitical risk going ahead here within the next couple months, so it might be a good idea. Looking at the screen here, in terms of valuation measures, I'm not going to get into a lot of them, but the forward PE is over 50 now. If you watched my last video when I originally looked at it, I think it was around 18 or something like that, and that's what kind of got me interested. And the interesting thing about this as well is that I think this is what the forward PE was roughly when they were at their all-time highs. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So basically the market's saying to keep this valuation, they got to start doing better than they did before. And I'm not too sure if that's going to happen anytime soon. Trailing PE, of course, is reasonable, but looking to the forward, I would be a little bit more interested on looking at that. Price to sales as well, it's 2.26 now, which is getting a little high, and that's something that I'm taking note of as well. So going forward, guys, I think especially over the holidays, this is going to do phenomenal, but has its valuation caught up to it in terms of what the price is? Let me know down below. So that's just what I'm going to be doing. I think most likely tomorrow it's going to be going up, but I don't know how much of that ground it's going to hold. I mean, it could go to 130, who knows, but you got to lock in those profits. And like I said, it has exceeded what I would consider, at least right now, a pretty reasonable valuation. So again, guys, let me know what you think. I'd really like to know, especially if you know about any of the stuff I'm not too sure about. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one.